Hey, it's Dr. Dunaway here with Chiro Strength, and today we're on part 3 of the Diastasis Recti recovery routine, and it's going to be all about core exercise selection. Now, I saved this for last because if the preceding skills of good posture and good breathing and bracing is not there, even the best selection of exercises, the exercises you need to be doing, if they're done poorly, are still going to be detrimental for your recovery. So at the best, it'll do nothing to help you. At worst, it'll make it more pronounced, that protrusion. And now if we talk about the diastasis recti, remember, it's a splitting of this linea alba, this line between the two abs. And those abs run vertical in this direction. The fibers go from high up into the sternum here and actually attach down to the pelvic, the rim of the pelvis down here, but they run vertical. So any kind of flexion-based exercise, whether that's a crunch, whether that's a leg lift, that's just going to be training this line of fibers and do nothing to close this up. So that's probably going to make this worse because anytime we're flexing, it's going to be hard to maintain good intra-abdominal pressure. All the exercise selection that we want is going to be upright with a good neutral spine, either resisting rotation or creating rotation where we'll be trying to cinch that together like this. So I'm going to give you an exercise kind of generality. So when I say anti-rotation exercise, there's a lot of exercises under that umbrella. I'm going to show you a few of them. One of my favorite being a few of the pull-off press variations. And then we're going to do some actual oblique kind of creating rotation. Again, rotation in the absence of a lot of flexion or everything like that, because we want to maintain a good upright posture, at least to start with. And then you can kind of progress from there. However, when we say anti-rotation or a pull-off press, it's going to look like something just like the dead bug did at the very beginning, but we're going to add a degree of trying to resist ourselves being pulled by these bands. Now, these loop bands, I prefer training with these aside from anything else when it comes to core work, just because I like the resistance arc that you get with this. And so what we do, we're going to get on our back, and just like we'd be doing a dead bug, so there's no flexion here. We're trying to keep the spine neutral. I'm going to pull this band here in front of me, so it's wanting to pull me over this way, and I'm going to try to resist that. So what I'm going to do is lock in, good breathing bracing strategy, push straight up and hold, and then come back down. Come up and hold for 3 to 5 seconds, come back down. Now if we get good at that, and we can really create this good brace, we can come up into this dead bug position, and now do these pull-off presses in a good dead bug position like this. And any core exercise that's on the ground is going to be easier than anything in a kneeling position. When half kneeling position is going to be harder than that, and a standing position is going to be harder than that. Just because there's more things going on that need to work together when you're standing and doing core versus lying down and doing core. So the pull-off press in the dead bug position is my first go-to. Now the second one's going to be a pull-off press when I'm in a tall kneeling position. Again, now we got to really focus on this pelvis alignment, making sure we're not opened up like this, making sure we're not closed down. So find that good pelvic neutral, lock in, and still do the same pull-off press here. Obviously we do both sides, but this anti-rotation drill is going to be a great way to start training those obliques. The next progression there is in a half kneeling position. In a half kneeling position, now we're getting a little off balance. The pelvis in a little different position. The more this foot is in line with this knee, it creates a little bit more of a balance, just makes it a little more difficult. So we can go from here, which would be a little easier, to here before we come into a standing position. So again, that's the same pull-off press though. Eventually getting into a standing position. Now we got to worry about what's going on with the hips, the core, the ribs. There's a lot going on here, but we're still doing that pull-off press, and I would actually have this anchored about level of my shoulders, wherever that would be. So that's an anti-rotation exercise that's great for kind of getting these obliques fired up, teaching you how to engage those obliques while you're still maintaining a good breathing and bracing strategy. Next is going to be some things called chops and lifts. So if I want to do a chop, or if I want to do a lift, I would get into this half kneeling, this half kneeling here, or this tall kneeling position here, and go low to high. And now I'm creating rotation as opposed to resisting rotation. But as you see, I'm not getting flexion and coming up and overextending. This creates a lot more demand to be really coordinated with keeping the pelvis and the spine in line the entire time so we can maintain that good pressurization of the core. So that would be a lift. A chop would be exactly the same thing, except it'll go from high to low. I like chopping over my outside leg just because when we're walking, we walk with one leg coming forward, the other arm coming forward in this what's called a gait pattern. And so I like connecting this oblique to this hip. So that's going to be training the obliques from a standpoint of the anterior core. A pull-off press, anti-extension, a chop, and a lift, which is this kind of creating rotation. And the last thing we're going to do is just some anti-rotation, including the posterior chain. So as I do a bird dog is a really good way to practice a bird dog is with a slider here. Because what I'm going to do, let me scoot back a little bit so you can see me here. What I'm going to do with the bird dog, again, my spine stays neutral. I try to find that neutral position, lock it in, and as I slide this back, I'm needing to resist rotation because my hip's wanting to drop, and I need to bring it back up in this position and let it just hover above the ground. Now you see a lot of people do bird dogs like this, where the spine's extended, the neck is up. You've got to stand and maintain a good neutral position. So if you look at me from this angle, as my leg goes back, I do not shift onto that down leg. I stay nice and neutral. So that's a good anti-rotation exercise to be done on the posterior chain. So now you have some anti-extension or anti-rotation with the pull-off press. You got the chops and lifts, and you also have the anti-rotation with the bird dog to hit a little bit of that posterior chain. So again, there's a lot of exercises that can fall under this umbrella, but first and foremost, good breathing bracing strategy, good posture alignment. Making sure you can mobilize some scars if they are interrupting your body's ability to engage certain areas. And then a good exercise selection. From here, you can start talking about a lot of strength training routine. In general, with your strength training routine, a lot of unilateral stuff, unilateral pressing, unilateral legs, so single leg deadlifts, single leg squats. A lot of things done unilaterally will train the obliques much more than any type of bilateral squat or bilateral push or pull. So this is just a start. A lot of theoretical stuff because you can get very specific with these exercises, and certain exercises will be more applicable to some people than others. So just keep in mind there is a range of things here, but I hope this video helped kind of get you started with your exercise selection. If you have any questions with any of this, you can always comment below. You can always reach me at Dr. Dunaway at chirostrength.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And like I always say, don't just mend, transcend. Thanks.